able to put it to rest if it ever creeps back up. Like, I want to learn the lesson.
Sometimes that person could be injected into your life without you knowing, and they may not show you value for a few weeks.
What is going on, everybody? We are back again for another Fireside Chat, number 2. Let us know how we did last week. Let us know how we did this week. A little bit different flow, and let's kind of keep it moving. So for this week, we're both going to talk about some things that are on our mind, kind of just openly discuss it with each other, a little bit more natural conversation between literally what we got going on week to week. We're both people, we're both humans, we both kind of process and learn things as we go along. And one of the things that I personally am processing right now is how to qualify relationships. Which relationships are justifiable of my time given my actual goals and what I want to achieve. So the other day I was sitting down watching a movie with my wife, and sometimes kind of thoughts just flow. And one of the things that kind of came to me was whoever I have a relationship with needs to have a how to my whatever it is that I'm trying to do to a certain extent. That is a justifiable relationship that is worth my time. Whoever you are, being that other person on the other side of the relationship, has a how that I need the answer to, right? You have the ability to do something that I do not have the ability to do. That is a justifiable relationship in my eyes at this moment in my life. I don't really have a lot of leisurely relationships just for conversation. I don't have time for that. So a lot of my relationships that don't have a purpose or don't add value have been kind of like eliminated. And I know you, Kirk, have been there at that same point. But the thing that I'm kind of talking about now is like, how do I bring those back in? Like, I can't just have random relationships with the people that I meet or the people that I interact with at work. To a certain extent, there's the obligatory relationship, but how do I get a different relationship or a different value out of that relationship outside of whatever it is? So the people that I meet, how do I justify who I give time to? And what I was actually processing the other day is that how question. If you have the how, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be how to cook a meal, right? Let's say you're a chef and I'm interested in making different types of food. You have the how to something that I don't yet know how to do. So therefore, that's a justifiable relationship. But when I try and find how in someone and I cannot, that's not a justifiable relationship, because ultimately that person is going to be taking my time, taking my how, and I don't have the ability to get anything back. And it really does sound selfish, but at this point in my life, that's the type of relationship that I kind of need to have to get to where I'm going. My relationships need to put me in a certain direction to get to where I'm going. And I'm still not 100% set on this how situation, but it doesn't have to be specifically to, for example, work or in terms of money. So, for example, you have been in a relationship longer than I have, right? You have a how in terms of relationship that I don't have. It's not something that we discuss, but you do. When it comes to leadership, you've gone down a different path. So, you have different experiences than I do. So, me and you having a certain relationship, yes, we're friends outside of everything, but you also have information that I don't have, right? Knowing you makes me a better person in some way, shape, or form, right? You push in certain aspects, or I see a gap in certain aspects when I compare myself to you, and not in a negative way, but there are certain things that kind of get filled in that sense. So being in a relationship with you as a friend makes me a better person, and you have information that I don't have. So it's not just an arbitrary for fun type relationship. I don't think I'm in a portion of my life that for fun is a good enough reason right now, because it distracts from what I want to achieve. That was a long intro, but does that make sense?
Oh my God. All right. So here's how I broke this down. All right. So we'll go both ways on this, because I can talk out of both sides of my mouth in this conversation. Number one, it sounds like you're transactionalizing people. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I get it. I'm there with you. The only thing that I would challenge you on, and this is the other side, just for my first bullet point, would be sometimes you don't know why people are in your life. So when you meet them, if you were to cue them up, essentially on, hey, this is the value that you can provide me, and if you can't provide me any value, then right now I'm not going to give you any energy, right? When sometimes that person could be injected into your life without you knowing, and they may not show you value for a few weeks or a few months, only because in order to get to a point where you move into more either an emotional or logical conversation, you have to get to know somebody. So it's very hard to meet people who are very forthcoming with who they are right off the rip, number one. And number two, it's also very hard to understand people's mindset and if it's genuine or if it's a show. Because think about how many podcasters out there give advice. I think we talked about this in going into these chats when we're over here giving advice about all these topics of conversation, but we haven't mastered them yet. And that was the biggest thing on my mind for us to even change this chat and move it on to something that we're just working on as human beings, as leaders, as fathers, as husbands, whatever we want to quantify, is that I just don't feel like we've reached the pinnacle of success for us to even give feedback hardcore on a certain topic when we're still working on it. But there's a lot of people who could give you everything you need transactionally, and you feel either motivated, inspired, or impacted by, but it may not be genuine enough because you haven't gotten to know them long enough to see them put in the efforts, the energy, and for them to showcase to you that they've been successful at, whether it's being a chef, whether it's something in finance, whether it's something in real estate. So I think there's a lot to unpack there. My second overall bullet point on that, though, and then we can kind of go back into some chatter, would be I feel like that too sometimes, just because there's going to be people who enter your life and leave your life, right? And then you're going to have people who stay in your life for a very long time, and there's no right or wrong answer here, and it doesn't have to. If you remove the emotion from it, like somebody can leave my life, but they provided a tremendous value from 4 to 5 years, right? And they were there for a reason. But as you outgrow them or you outpace them, there's nothing wrong with moving on to the next category, right? They provided value. They gave you stability, whether it was emotionally, financially, logically, or they were just there during, a tough portion of your life. But once you level up to the next level and you're on level 32, whatever that may be, there's no need for them anymore. In both ways, the relationship is now ended on both sides of the game. And there's nothing wrong with that either, right? And then you'll have those that will stay with you for a lifetime, that'll grow through what you guys go through. So I feel you on that. I've been there. I'm probably still there personally, because I just feel like a lot of people have got a lot of things going on outside of life that I wish I could help them for. But I guess my biggest takeaway would be, man, there just seems to be a lot of in certain people, and everybody's on a different journey, man. And I have no expectation of what that journey should look like. Some of the journey may not be until you're 40 or 50 years old. Some of it could be at 20 years old. I don't know, and I don't care. Whatever journey you're on is perfectly fine with me, as long as you're happy and as long as you're progressing. But I think there's just a lot of people, man, depending on what time of life that you catch them in, they're just on a different level than you, and you're unable to connect with them, and that doesn't necessarily mean that nothing can happen in the future, but it's just not right now. And it's really hard in today's time and age to tell people that, and for them not to be emotionally conflicted or distraught by that comment, because there's a lot of people who could just listen to what you just opened up with and think that you were extremely selfish by that comment. But there's nothing wrong with that, because you got to safeguard your journey and you got to safeguard your mindset with where you're at, truthfully, because if you're at all exposed and you're in a hardcore journey, whatever discipline that may be in, whether it's just trying to make sure you're not impacted emotionally by something, you don't want to get disrupted in your cadence or your rhythm. Letting somebody in at that moment in time can really disrupt that growth, man. At the end of the day, the only person that you're going to be focusing on when you're dying on your deathbed is you. Like, it's your journey and what journey that meant the most to you, whether that's family or whether that's personal or spiritual growth. So those are my two biggest takeaways, but I want to go back to that number one spot real fast and see what you think about that.
So, yes, I understand. And I literally said that it is kind of selfish to a certain extent, but it's not even a but, it's more of an and. This doesn't qualify current relationships, and it doesn't disqualify others, because I know that there are relationships that don't have a how to a certain extent. in terms of the direction that I want to go, if I'm being very specific, right? Because the person that has the answer to the how of where I want to go is someone further ahead in the journey, right? So it'd be more of a mentorship type relationship, which is what I'm talking about more specifically, right? At this point in my life, I feel that I'm at a point where I may need a little bit of guidance in the forward direction. And that's more along the lines of what I'm talking about, not leisurely relationships, because obviously, everyone has those types of leisurely relationships. And knowing someone and having a relationship with someone for the purpose of fun and entertainment to a certain extent is good if you use it correctly. Now, when that builds to your level of happiness and it builds to your level of satisfaction, great. And that is a thing, that is an actual intrinsic value that you have. And it doesn't have to be a how. It's just like, hey, when I hang around this person, I feel better, right? When I hang around this person, or I talk to this person, I am a happier human being. That can be its value, right?
Let me ask you this.
What?
So, and for those of you listening, if you want to drop a comment below, please do. But like I've always heard, just upon some of my research, whether it's true or not is subjective, but I've always heard that you want to keep three types of friends. One that's where you were at, one that's where you're currently at. So past tense, like a past friend where you started, one where you're currently at right now, and then one where you want to go. How do you feel about that?
I don't disagree in terms of the actual comparison, because it kind of grounds you. I do disagree in the sense that where you've been and where you are isn't going to help you get where you're going, because you have to be different. You cannot be the same and still grow. I get it from being able to look back and reflect, but you don't need that active example. Some people don't need that active example. Some people do, right? So I can look back and know a relationship that I had and where I was mentally and what I was focused on at that time for that relationship. But I don't need to have that relationship and have that focus to understand it, right? Because, for example, I had a car that I was, messing with and doing stuff too, and I was out and I wasn't really focused on anything outside of that objective car. I don't need to have those relationships anymore, right? I don't have the car. I don't fit in. Like, I don't need to talk to those people. The common ground was that object or what I was trying to do. And I don't have that common ground anymore. Like, I don't have to try to build that, or I don't want to try to build that commonality anymore just to know what I was back then, because that's not where I'm trying to go, right? So
Right.
I understand it from the comparison standpoint, and I get it. You need to be able to sit down, humble yourself, compare backwards. But that's not going to help me move forward in any way, shape, or form. Not to my knowledge. Like, I don't think
The
that
only reason
will.
why I bring that up, man, is I just like you're a logical person, right? And there's pieces of you that I don't know about. No differently than same for you and me, right? But you're a pretty logical person. But just studying people long enough to know that we all have moments of weakness, right? Where we're tempted by something specifically. We get emotionally conflicted, though we practice time and time and again not to be emotionally conflicted. And something just drives a wedge into our growth for a second. And it may just be a second. It could be a couple hours. It could be just one day where you get into an argument. You get angry, right? When you're practicing not to get angry, whatever it may be. Like, we all have those moments, and they may be few and far between for some, and they may happen more frequent for others. And that's okay. Whatever happens, as long as you recognize it and you're aware of it, then that's fine. But that, I guess, to me, when I look at that, I totally agree with both of your points of view. I can agree with the why behind it, but I can also disagree that you can close doors that are no longer needed, because you don't need to maintain that identity any longer. I just, every now and then, man, and I'll get into my bullet points behind it, or my bullet point that I want to talk about, but you've got to be exceptionally disciplined. And even those that are disciplined very well and have been doing it for 10 or 15 years still get tempted with the old emotional demon that creeps into their brain occasionally, right? It's very hard to be 100%. So that's the only reason why I find value in those three types of people, is just because for me, it's like, if you don't stay on your shit, if you don't stay hungry if you don't stay working to whatever it may be, and continue to bury that demon, that emotional point of view, you could end up right back there, or in just a different version of it. Not the same level, not the same intensity, but you could end up back where you started, if you're not aware of that demon that you locked away. And each people can lock those fuckers away and bury a shit ton of weight on it, man. But every single time, to me, and this is how I visualize it, every time that I get emotional, or that I lose what I had been doing 10 years ago, and I lose my temper, I get angry, I get mad or something like that. And I'm just using this as a metaphor, as an example. I feel like I just lost a little bit of ground right there. So then I have to go back and rebuild it back up. Right. And I got to shovel more shit on top of that demon so it doesn't creep up on me, because I do have moments of weakness, or where I lose control emotionally over something. Right. It's all subjective, but that's the reason why I like the 3 versions. Is to keep myself humble, to stay grounded and proud of where you're at, and then to think forward to the future. That's how I quantify it, truthfully. Like, I've got 3 and 4 friends, and I could bucketize them that way.
I get it. I fully get it. I fully understand.
Bucketize. It's a good word.
Bucketize.
Word. Put that in my dictionary.
Categorize.
Yeah. That's how my brain works, man. But go ahead.
Here's the one thing that I have to say to that's very interesting, and I don't know the whole saying, but either way, it was one of the Tony Robbins things, and it is what it is. But there's a thing that Meet and I did that was Unleash the Power Within. It's one of the events. Either way, one of the guys that was there talking, I don't know the entire phrase, but the saying says, "Protect the gates of your mind," and then there's some more words that come behind that I don't remember, but they're not necessarily the important part. This phrase of just protect the gate of your mind is very interesting to me, in the sense that we're influenced as individuals by everything and anything around us. Everything and anything around us. You have to be aware of the influence that whatever that thing is trying to have on you. And you need to be active with, yes, I want that influence, or no, I don't want that influence. But commercials, TV shows, radio, the people that you literally interact with have thoughts and opinions. And at one point, here's the thing. It's like, you can plant a seed of success, and the same thing that you do in leadership happens to us in whatever situation, right? So if you want someone to be a leader, or you want someone to chase something, and you have a new employee that's positive and a hustler and a go-getter, and you just ask a simple question like, "Hey, do you want to lead?" And that's it. You just leave it there. They don't know what just happened, but you just planted a seed, and that seed is now going to be watered and grown over the course of time, when you can make comments along the lines of, "Hey, you're doing a good job. This is what a leader would do," right? And you just watered that right there. And eventually, after time, whether they thought so or not, that seed that you planted with that question bloomed into something. That relationship that you have with someone that's negative does the same thing. Now it has to be up to you to filter that out. And the further along the line you go, you get better at it. But I don't want to have to fight that negative thought, right? I would rather just not have it at all. And that's how you filter it, is through the relationships, through the people that you have around you, what environment you build and create. And that's the thing that I'm trying to go for. So I can have someone that's from my past, but I don't want to have to keep on battling that battle. I want to put it behind me. I don't want to think about it anymore. I want to have the ability to acknowledge it and understand what it is, and be able to put it to rest if it ever creeps back up. Like, I want to learn the lesson, but I don't want to fight it every single day, right? I want to learn other things. I want to practice other things. I don't want to take that time for a certain level of negativity and take time away from building to focus on filtering out that negative seed that has been planted in a random comment, because it's a little comment. It's always a little comment. It's always a little something, right? It's a little bit of doubt. You look at social media, you compare yourself to someone. That's a little seed. You just watered it. And then you go back again and you compare yourself to someone else. And that's a little seed and you just watered it. And then all of a sudden you're talking to someone and they mention something along the lines of like, hey, you're getting a little, you're getting a little pudgy. And then all of a sudden that clicks with the other thing. And now you have a cascading effect of whatever that is, negativity. I want that to happen, but in a positive sense, right? I want that to happen to build. I don't want that to happen to deteriorate. So if there's someone that has that negative mentality, I don't want them in my life, bro. Like I don't. And I get it. It may be selfish, but right now,
I wouldn't say it's selfish at all. I wouldn't say it's selfish at all, right? Oh man, I guess the only thing that I would look at is that sometimes looking at people like that can help you stay away from that in a sense, right? And it just depends on like the other side of it too is when people like that are inserted into your life. I don't know, maybe I feel like I owe it to the universe to pay it forward and to try to save somebody, right? Now, and what I mean by that is like you can tell clear as day if people are not actually interested in self-development or growth just by the way they react a couple of times. And there's some people who like, and this comes back from me being just young in leadership a long time ago. Like I used to be like, hey man, if I'm a high school dropout and I can figure this out, like everybody can figure this out. That used to be my mentality before I started to talk to anybody, right? And what I learned by that, it is true, but there's just people who don't want to accept that. They refuse to water that seed, for your metaphor, right? And that's okay too, because until they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, they're not going to change anything. Until they see what's possible and they feel like they're destined to make a change, that's when you can nurture and foster that relationship and still not be impacted negatively by that relationship. So as I've gotten older and as I've gotten wiser in that, I'm very safeguarded with the energy that I put out. Like for example, like I used to pass out books religiously all the time. Like I would books, podcasts, whatever it may have been. And it used to piss me off how many people who wouldn't read them or wouldn't podcast, they wouldn't give you feedback. And the number one thing they used to always tell you is I haven't had time. And it made me so mad, man, because I'm like, bullshit. You're scrolling Facebook, you drive to work for 20 minutes, you can put a podcast on or an Audible book. Like you're just not in that mindset or that mind space. And that was the key term for me, is like, they just didn't want it. And I'm like, I can't be mad at that. It is what it is. Like if they're on a different journey, that's fine. They may not cross that path until they're 50. Like whatever is meant to be for them is meant to be. And if they're not meant to do anything in that regard, then don't be mad either. So I just safeguard my energy more, because I would exhaust myself in a tremendous amount of energy in trying to get other people to think the way that I thought. And it would just make me mad when I realized that truthfully, like, 80% of your team's work ethos comes from 20% of your people most of the time. So like I would only start to develop one or two people, and that was it. And I let them come to me from now on. Like I'll buy books now, but I'm like, my phrase that pays right here is like, you can read this or you can use it on your coffee table as a drink stand. It is completely up to you. I will not be upset. I will not take it personal. It's up to you. That's it. And that shows you where the person is. But it doesn't necessarily mean that because they don't read that book that they can't grow either. They just may not they may not resurrect, but they may not connect with that form of conversation. And that's okay too, man. As long as they're making progress forward, as long as I can see that, then that's what would allow me to connect or build that relationship, so to speak. So I don't find it selfish at all, man, truthfully, because I only feel like you have so much energy that goes around, and it's exhausting if you're wasting it on everybody when 90% of the crowd doesn't care. And that's truthful. It's not being harsh. It's not being an asshole. 90% of the population doesn't care. And that's okay too. As long as you're happy, man. That's all I care about.
So it is what it is. Like I said, I've been thinking about it. It's just, I'm looking for a way to qualify stuff, right? That's the thought that I had. May not be what I go for, may be what I go for. I don't know yet. So I've just been putting some thoughts behind it and how to build a group of individuals around me that are looking to succeed, a group of people that are going to add to my personal satisfaction.
Have you read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would quantify that, and this is not the same definition, but the law of the mastermind. is what he talks
Yeah.
about frequently.
Yeah.
That's the same thing you're saying specifically, is that you want to create a table of people who have different points of view, but are still fighting for the same thing. And that's just, personal progress or professional progress, right? You're not going to be a mastermind at everything, but you can build a table to create an overall mastermind, is the way I interpret that.
Yeah, 100%. That's pretty much it. Have you read Outwitting the Devil?
No, I know you were going to ask that. I know you recommended that book. I took a break from reading for a while because I felt like I was reading the same shit over and over again. So, because you just listen to so many podcasts and so much content, and it just became so redundant that I could not gain interest. But I am back in a space where I'm going to start reading a little bit more. I'm just looking for something that's different, dude. But completely different than what's been discussed before. Otherwise, I'll just lose it. If I don't gravitate in a book in the first chapter, I'm done reading it. So, but let me segue into mine real fast, and what's been on my mind, and truthfully, it's just been discipline, man. Like the definition of discipline, how you interpret discipline, and I'll kind of give you a little bit of my headspace on it, and then I'll give it back to you for a second to give me your thoughts on it, but. For me, discipline's, the first thing that pops in my mind is like, why is discipline so hard? Like, and that's a stupid question, but it's a necessary question. Just because there's so many different things that you don't want to do, but you have to do it. Got to be willing to sacrifice a tremendous amount of leisure, things that you want in order to unlock the next version of you, right? And the reason why this has been on my space is because like I gave up sugar a few weeks ago. And I think we've talked about it through certain episodes that I think we're both in a place where working out is a lot more prevalent in both of our lives. And it has been for me. And I've made a tremendous amount of progress, dude. I think I'm down 50 pounds total since I started this journey, a year and a half ago. I feel really good with where I'm at. I feel good with the progress I'm making. So I just decided to delete sugar. And man, it's been tough. I feel good. I feel better, but it's been fucking tough just because you don't realize the amount of things that have sugar in it until you start to turn over labels and you're like, Jesus Christ, ketchup has 6 grams of sugar in it. Holy shit. Like, okay, can't use ketchup. So I had a hamburger last night. It was just fucking straight mustard, which was terrible in my opinion, but I didn't really care. It is what it is. So then the general topic to that is just like, why are you doing it? Right. And I haven't lost a bunch of weight in the past 2 weeks because I've deleted sugar. I don't really have a lot of sugar in my life other than coffee, an occasional beverage of some sort. So like, sugar from me to the traditional American is probably completely different because I've cut a lot of it out. I don't eat processed foods. I don't eat candies a lot. I don't eat ice creams a lot. Occasionally, like once on the weekends with the girls, I would do it. So it's not been terrible. But then when you start looking at it, you're like, damn, dude, after it's gone and you've deleted it, your mind just starts to fuck with you. And you said something about mindset. And I went and searched a quote because I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, right? It was his journal. I read it almost every day. And I look for quotes specifically, and something that came across my mind. One of his quotes were, if you have or are distressed by anything external, it's not the pain that's messing with you, man. It's your estimate of it. And I paraphrase of it, right? So your mind is like, it's not the pain of being without sugar that's causing me any distress, right? And I'm just using this as a metaphor for my life right now. But it's just your mindset and the estimate of what you think you're missing from having that sugar or not working out or just doing whatever you want. It's just your mind fucking with you, dude, saying no, man. And to go back to what you said about the having a gate around your mind, like you have to protect that, because I feel like you have 2 different versions of you inside of you, right? And I think that's been talked about. I think we've said something around it, like you have a good wolf and a bad wolf, right? And I'll quote that from Matthew McConaughey. Like, you've just got to feed the good wolf a little bit more than you feed the bad wolf, and you've got to put a gate around that bad wolf. Otherwise, over time, he or she will just break through your mind. So for me, just looking at just something like sugar, where it's just like, God damn it, dude, like it's not necessary. Food is not necessary in the sense of we've created a lot of pleasure around food. So we think we need it, we enjoy it, we built lifestyles around it. But what we truly need food for is to just survive. The flavor and the taste is something that we've added over time, right? So being able to say no to those Twinkies or Ho-Hos, or to that ice cream, to those cookies, to the sugar constantly, like that's just and for me, it's about fortifying my mind and building up that gate to become like solid iron. But man, like what I've been thinking about all week is like, why the fuck is this so tough? And why is my mind trying to defeat me right now? And saying, just go fucking have that cookie, bro. What do you think?
Because sugar is more addictive than cocaine. Sugar creates more dopamine in your mind than the high of drugs. You are literally fighting an addiction. Welcome to modern society where they don't tell you this thing. But no, seriously, sugar has a stronger effect on your body. And this is something that we take, processed sugar, and we take in excessive doses. So I did the thing, no sugar. For the most part, we don't take a lot of sugar. Like if I go out to eat or something, I'll drink a soda. I don't get candy very much. Occasionally, on a random weekend, I'll get a bag of candy and like we'll eat it. So it's not like I'm not doing it at all, but significantly reduced. Here's the thing though, right? Just like any sort of nutrition, when it comes to sugar, very specifically, there is a quantity that you are supposed to have on a day-to-day basis. And for most adult human beings, that's less than 100 grams of sugar. And it all depends on your size. I don't know the specific math behind it, but either way, for me personally, I think it's like 70 or 80 grams of sugar that my body's able to handle and process correctly. Everything else kind of gets stored as fat. And we're talking sugars, like natural sugars, fruit sugars, that kind of thing. Processed sugar, nobody should have at all. But either way, about 70 to 80 gram is what your body can actually metabolize. If you think about that, that is 1 can of soda a day, or 1 coffee a day, or 1 sugary treat of some sort a day. 1. Anything over that, your body cannot handle that excess amount of sugar. It stores it as extra carbs. You start to get fat, or you start to get inflamed in different places because it doesn't just immediately go to the gut. It's kind of starts in your muscles and tendons, and everything kind of starts to get puffy because sugar makes you really, really like swollen. It literally swells your body. So you're literally fighting an addiction. It's crazy to think about it like that, but you're fighting an addiction by not eating sugar. If you are literally fighting an addiction. That's why it's so hard. That's one of the most difficult things to do.
I totally agree with that, man. And like I said, that's why the topic of conversation that's come back for me is just the straight up discipline. It's to fight the urge. And like you can connect the dots with this analogy for like anything in life, whether it's screen time, whether it's hanging out with friends, whether it's punching out at 5:01 and calling it a day, like whatever it may be. Like you've got to find a great way to discipline yourself, man. I'm not even close to like I can't wake up early. Like I wake up early for work, but like if you were to say I'm going to wake up at 4:30 for the next 30, which will be my next challenge, but like I just don't like waking up. And it's not that I sleep a lot. I'm not lazy. I'm physically active. I'm constantly doing things around the house. I'm doing yard work. I work 60 to 80 hours a week. Like I'm not scared of work or hustle. And I maybe sleep twice a week where I'll sleep more than 8 hours. And truthfully, it's probably only once a week. So there's certain things that I can discipline myself on much easier. And there's other things that I struggle with. So I'm still on that journey. But it's been a heavy topic, similar to what you and I were discussing earlier. It's like, I get into a space in life, man, I can feel it where I'm about to level up, right? You're about to level up. You've made progress, and I don't have it on a timeline. But I know that the next piece of the game is about to click, right? And right now, truthfully, I feel like the next level is here. The next level is here physically. The next level is here mentally. Like I'm in a good spot where I feel like I'm going to bounce to the next level, whatever level I'm on. And whenever that happens, the word discipline comes up because you're about to unlock a different version of yourself, but it's going to require some discipline to get there. And you're at that perpendicular crossroad of life where it's like, okay, I can either continue on this path and I can level up and stay more disciplined, or I can take a path of least resistance and take a right or a left, right? And I hate the path of least resistance, dude. I hate the path. Like I'm the guy that will walk up the stairs before I take an elevator. If I feel random and I'm like, man, I just feel really lazy for some reason. If I go up this escalator, I'll just walk up the stairs. Like I challenge myself in the most random spots of the day or of the week to do something completely unorthodox, and whatever it may be, right? I'm just giving you a stupid example, but I can just feel it. Similar to our conversation earlier, the next level is on the horizon, but it's going to require a different version of yourself, right?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I'm there too. Obviously, we were talking a little bit earlier, and one of the things that I've actually been battling, it's discipline. It's discipline. Like, there's no other way to put it. It's discipline. But for me, it's time to grind, man. Following up our conversation from last week, like, I have to put in more effort. And I say effort, but it's really more discipline towards the thing that I'm working on. And anytime it's ever time to level up for anyone, it just takes more time towards the thing that you're working on. Period. Like, that's just the basic of it. It takes more time towards the thing that you're working on. And you have to figure out your time, right? There's not enough time. Just going back to the comment that you made, it's like, I don't have enough time. No, I stopped listening to that a very, very long time ago. It's not about, I don't have time for that. It's how you choose to arrange your time, because you make time for everything that you deem to be important. There has not been a day where you didn't breathe because you didn't have enough time, right? So you just do it. So when it comes to discipline and leveling up, very specifically, like for me, I'm just going to step up the stuff that I have going on the YouTube channel. So I have to focus more on that, focus less on something else, and then stick with it. The thing that's very interesting to me when you level up, and we talked about it on an earlier episode, like a lot earlier episode, I don't remember, it was probably like 3 or 4, but when you get to a certain level of the game, it's because you have your discipline on lock, right? You don't miss the key points that you need to miss, right? Just from a basic level of similar understanding. When it comes to, let's just say, retail management, like we used to do back in the day, because I don't know what your day-to-day looks like, and mine is different now. But, if you don't have the ability to come in and look at your sales numbers on a day-to-day basis, like, you can't run a store. Is it basic? Yeah. Do you have to understand them? Yeah, to a certain extent. But really, the ability to come in and do that repeated mundane task over and over again daily gets you somewhere. But the thing is, you don't know the purpose of it when you start, right? The first time you look at it, you're like, these are just fucking numbers, right? But then you look at it like every day for a week, and then it's like, okay, this week had like a flow to it. And then you look at every week compared to a different week, and you're like, okay, now I know what's going on. And then eventually, after you look at it for 6 months straight, every single day, you look at your paperwork in the morning, and you're like, okay, these are what the numbers should be today, roughly based on just past experience, right? So that at a very basic level is literally what we're doing, but we have to add it to the things that we've already done. Like for me, I have to add more work to the level of work that I've already done. If I ever go back on the level of work that I've done, I've immediately just like went back in time, and I'm at a different level of discipline. So it's always adding and building towards the direction that you want to go. So it's interesting. So you just have to make more time for the things that get you in the direction that you want to go. And that's very basic to think about, but it's hard as fuck to do.
No, I agree. I'll end on this, man. I think, I said it in a previous conversation, but it's like a broken record. Until you, beat the boss at the end of that level, you're going to continue to cycle through the same level. It's up to us to infer the area of opportunity that's keeping us back or holding us back, or the lack of discipline to make a decision to do the same thing and to be consistent in your patterns. Too often do we feel a bit of pressure and we decide to change our strategy when at the wrong time. Like, there's always a reason to adjust the sails, so to speak. But you have to figure out when in that level it's time to change that pattern. Otherwise, we'll throw away the entire game plan and start over again, which only lengthens that level of opportunity for us, right? So discipline can be defined simply, but it's different for us all, depending on where we're at in our journey. So until next time.
Damn, just out like that, bro. That's it.
That's it.
Bye-bye.